Glad to be here. David Tulis with Nooga Radio 92.7. And we are covering local economy and the free market every day. And and I have a phone call to make, but I can't figure out what to do. But the story is wanted to let you know about Rhea County. The big story today is Rhea County, north of Chattanooga, rural county, where Dayton is the seat of the county. And at the county commission meeting last night, the voters, the constituents of these commissioners, showed up en masse in very, very large numbers. There were about 70, more than 70 in the commission room. It's very warm in there, not a place to sit. I had to sit on the floor by the front row. And then I made note of what was happening before the commissioners, and the crowd outside in the hallway was another 50 or so people with their farm overalls and their build caps. They were almost all the ones out in the hallway of whom I took a quick poll were there because of their objection to their opposition to a measure proposed by Commissioner Bill Hullen to extend police powers among commissioners by the adoption of two provisions of the Tennessee Code title that deals with municipal authority. And it's a very broad power granted. It's almost a totalitarian kind of power granted to the commission that apparently Mr. Hullen says already is possessed by municipal corporations such as Dayton. Okay, Dayton already has this power. So why not make it equal and give it to the county commission? Well, the mere language was being as broad as it was simply terrifying to too many people who read it. And word got out Friday morning that this provision was going to be discussed yesterday at a workshop. And so the reporting on that was done by me, David Tulis, yours truly, drew an interest in the story. I must say that I've had a huge interest in the reporting I've done on it, the review I've done on the language, and talking to some of the principals. One of the commissioners, the man giving the measure, Bill Hullen, gave me a brief interview. Said he did not want to come on the program to talk with you, but he did give me some very colorful, colloquial quotations about why he feels is necessary to have such protections, if you will. These powers are always framed as protections, and my number is 800-8949, 800-8949. Well, the measure didn't even get to. It's not going to be discussed at the main meeting. This was a workshop meeting yesterday. It will not be discussed at the commission meeting this coming week because it's not on the agenda. And there were objections to it being placed on the agenda. The man who made that proposal, well, first, he didn't actually officially make it, but he discussed it so negatively that one of his colleagues said, well, we're not going to have this. I move. I hear Jim Reed's comments, and I move that we not even have it on the agenda. That was Jim Broyles, and a quick second came through. So given the strong oppositions, these men realized that it was not friendly to them to give any space at all for this idea of expanding police powers to do all kinds of things to effectively to allow the county to harass people on the request of others, or just harass people generally. So it was an open-ended grant of authority, though the 2-page resolution did make a deferential comments to, of course, constitutional protections and the like. And so it was voted that it would be tabled. This is David Tulis. I'm glad you're giving me just a couple minutes of your time. We are here at Nooga Radio, and I'm trying to get someone on the phone here. Let me just make this call. You're dialing my number. 2, 3, 1. I'm trying to reach Joe Paige, who's an entrepreneur in Rhea County, North Rhea County, lives in Spring City, a refugee from a regulation in other parts of the country from Florida, Tampa Bay area. He had moved up here.
Morning, David.
Hello, Joe. This is Joe Paige on the phone here. Joe, you are the free market oriented businessman and entrepreneur in Rhea County that last week made note to the press. And I heard about you on Friday. I was at Panera Posse, and where I go every Friday morning for bagels and coffee here in Hickson, and I received a telephone call from a concerned resident, and she put me in contact with you because probably before Friday, but at least as of Friday, you were telling people this is an alarming development in Rhea County. So, Joe, what happened last night at the county commission meeting?
Well, first of all, David, last night I saw Rhea County in that room. I saw East Tennessee in that room. There was over 100 people that packed the commission chambers and stood up in defense of their private property rights. These freedom and liberty-loving people actually gathered. It was the largest crowd I'd ever seen there. They stood up and asserted their right to control their private property as they wish. Now, I know we've gone over the resolution. I won't rehash that, as bad as it was. As soon as the meeting started, Commissioner Jim Reed tried to diffuse the situation by saying, well, this was overblown and people didn't understand it. Well, again, not giving people credit for being able to read the resolution and see how bad it was. You didn't have to scare anybody with this resolution. You just had to ask them to read it to find out how bad that it was.
Well, what did people say among the crowd? You were sitting in one of the rear rows. What did people say? What kind of comments did you overhear? Were people concerned? What did you hear them say, Joe Paige?
Well, most, if not all, of the people that I heard were against this proposal. And that, like I say, after they read it, they understood how bad and dangerous it was. But some of the most interesting comments I heard were from folks that said, I've never been here before, or I don't know much about county government, or I had no idea. Well, that's what happens. These people, hardworking people, are out trying to earn a living, trying to support their families, and the commissioners are hatching these kind of schemes in the commission chambers, unbeknownst to the people. But once the people found out about this, like I said, the comments that I heard were in defense of private property rights, in defense of the Constitution, in defense of freedom and liberty. And again, there was almost universal condemnation of this proposed ordinance.
Well, I think the danger that people see in measures like that, Joe Paige, is that it's really open-ended. It has very searching, deep language that seems to cover every kind of human activity and potential wrong. It was, after all, a nuisance ordinance that would have given enforcement powers to for the county to step in sort of peremptorily before any court action occurs and sort of solve the problem or settle disputes by effectively ordering someone to do something that may have been an inconvenience to a neighbor. So there was it wasn't just on clear wrongs and injuries, but inconvenience as well were in view.
Well, and another thing I'd like to mention too is that this issue, this was a nonpartisan issue. There was everything from liberal Democrats to conservative Republicans in that room, and everything in between last night, and they all were unified on the desire to protect their private property rights. Some of the commissioners, some of these folks are good commissioners. Well, no, I take that back. I think they're all good people. I think they really just need an education. Some of them need an education. You know, they don't understand the Fourth Amendment protection against search and seizure, and they don't understand the Fifth Amendment protections against taking of private property. But I wish they understood the Constitution as well as they understood the Tennessee Code annotated, because they're using these kinds of regulations to pummel the people into submission, and for no good reason.
Well, all right. So Rhea County, Joe Paige, is one without zoning. And my listener in Chattanooga and Hamilton County doesn't really understand the idea of not having zoning. In his mind, if you don't have zoning, Bledsoe County doesn't have it either. If you don't have zoning, you really don't have control. You can't. And then they'll use the cliches such as if you fail to plan, you're planning to fail, and so on. And the idea is that, well, if you don't have an overarching power and a body that creates plans and approves private property plans and so on, you're going to have just chaos, mayhem, and ugliness, and all kinds of contradictory neighbors. Is that true?
Well, David, conservatives are not anarchists. Libertarians are not anarchists. We believe that there is a place for proper regulation, but this had just gone way overboard. This was regulation overload, and there's a place again for people that would living in a city. If you have a neighbor 20 feet from you, there should be some certain protections that you should be able to ask for redress. But this is Ray County. This is wide open. If I wanted to live in a place that had those regulations, I would have moved there. But I moved to Ray County because of the freedom and liberty that I thought, and I still now think, is available here to us. So again, we have to be vigilant about this. This is not the last bite at the apple of these folks. A couple commissioners, Commissioner Jim Reed and Commissioner Bill Holland, they'll never stop trying to impose some of these regulations, thinking that they're for the good of the people. As I said last night at the meeting, these folks think that they're helping the people when they're really hurting. They're hurting the people, and I just ask them to please stop helping me.
Well, you're giving me something new I hadn't really thought about. Are you suggesting that Mr. Reed, who made the opening comments about this measure, which were largely negative, is he, though, generally in league with Bill Holland, favoring regulation, favoring these controls? Because he spoke warmly against them.
Absolutely. Well, David, yeah, you can change your stripes immediately. But there was this measure, not this measure, but a measure similar to this came up in June of 2011. And Jim Reed and Bill Holland and Tom Smith, another commissioner, voted for nuisance ordinances at that time. But again, like I said, they'll never stop trying to bring this up until we are able to purge the commission of these folks that think that they know best, that they know better than the people of Ray County, of East Tennessee. Yes, absolutely. Jim Reed, Bill Holland, and Tom Smith voted for something similar to this back in 2011, according to the local paper.
Well, listen, we do thank you, Joe, Paige, for chatting with me. Thank you very much.
David.
Joe Paige is a builder, lives in Spring City, and was among those about 120 or 130 people or so who came, I think, almost all on the same topic to the Ray County Commission meeting last night. And it was to oppose a measure. You can read about it at Nooganomics.com. That's Nooganomics.com, the multimedia platform connected here with Nooga Radio, and the chief sponsor of the David Tulis Show, which you are joining now. Thanks for tuning in. We're here at 92.7 FM and 95.3 HD4. That's high definition digital 4 radio, and our sponsor is Nooganomics.com. That has covered exhaustively several lines of stories in the past year or two, all of which have been, I think, because we've given strong attention to the conflict in view, been part of letting things be solved, right? Lancing the boil, if you will, or cleaning up the wound that is left by usually state aggression against the individual. We're thinking of the Hanson Melvin case, where the police abuse case here in Chattanooga, and also the Thomas and Carol Gaddy case in Dunlap in the next county, Sequatchie County. We gave extensive coverage to that. And I think the idea, of course, news coverage, is that you ask questions. You ask the slow man questions, the dumb questions, which is what I do, David Tulis. And in fact, my questions are so slow man that people mistake me for the smartest guy with the bow tie in Chattanooga, and that's just because I'm slow. I really don't get things. I'm not progressive. Okay, because I'm not progressive, I obviously have a defect, and so that is just the good question. And the point to make about the good question is that often the question is better than any answer a state actor will give you. And if you ask the right questions, you will get the right answer. Even if you're being lied to, you will get an informative and useful answer from the state officials. I have a habit of asking tough questions, and hope to serve you more here, David Tulis, on the David Tulis program. And want to mention here, just by the way, one of an in-house program it's called Summer Cares. The Essex girls, the Summer Essex and her mom Chrissy, are getting together boxes for service and Christmas boxes for homeless veterans. And that program is really taking off. And there'll be a little bit of a shindig at the community kitchen Friday. That's this Friday at 11 till 12:30, where these gifts given by you, my listener, and other people as well, to these homeless veterans. Summer Cares, a wonderful little program. You can find out more about that on Facebook. Of course, you've heard now about the Roy Moore defeat, brought down by slander and insinuation. Doug Jones beating him by a point and a half. A former prosecutor. I would say I would never vote for a former prosecutor, just because the whole bent of his mind is on law enforcement. Right? Prosecutors are law enforcement people, and I think we have enough law enforcement. We have enough law, so-called law, out of the Yankee Capitol, and so we have the assurance that Doug Jones will be a man very much astute in hounding the people with more legislation from the Democrats. The Republicans, of course, add their own basketfuls every session as well. Democrats are notorious for dirty tricks, but Republicans are pretty bad as well. There's a story that I want to mention about a great candidate for office in Texas. Now, this is not someone whose name we know. His name is Beau French, and just for the Democrat playbook on abusing candidates. Here's something for you to consider for use possibly in the Chattanooga area. If you have a candidate for a state house, Beau French, and his married man has 4 very, very pretty children, all maybe between 3 in the campaign website for this House District 99, between maybe 3 and 7, very pretty children, with his wife sitting on a cloth in a park. Well, just before the election of 2016, he was running for office then, and apparently is running for office again, or has announced again for that seat. There was a knock at the door of the French house. A caseworker from Child Protective Services and a police officer knocked on our door. He writes, they were responding to a complaint that had been filed against us, alleging child abuse was going on in our home. This was followed by repeat visits to our home the next day and the next. Oddly, once the election was over on Tuesday, this is 2016 March, CPS did not return. Sheridan and I were shocked. We were angry. We were concerned for our children. We knew Charlie Guerin's campaign would lie about me, but we never dreamed they would take actions to harm our children. He had promised not have any ad hominem attacks in that campaign against a man named Democrat named Charlie Green. For the last 18 months, he said, we have been engaged in a legal battle, consulting with our legal counsel and investigating everything we could find about all the individuals behind the false complaint. We now know more than we did then. And he goes on to say, Sorensen is the man in view. They have a lawsuit filed against a man named Sorensen, David Sorensen, a paid staffer on the Guerin campaign during the 2016 race. Longtime Democrat Party operative in Tarrant County and works for the Democrat Party in Tarrant County. It is nothing short of terrifying to have someone come for your children. However, the more digging we did and the more corruption we found, the more clear it became we had to fight back. And then here's this sort of odd deference that Republicans sometimes have to our mammoth state and its agents of mercy. CPS is an incredible state organization, and their work is imperative, he goes on to say, with so many children in true need of being rescued from abuse. And he goes on to say, so he's running for office again, having endured slander of that kind. Again, that's something for the Democrats to consider using against any young candidate for office on the other side of the aisle who has small children. Just accuse that Republican of abusing his children, and that will ruin his campaign, just as Roy Moore was ruined by similar accusations. This is David Tulis, and we are glad that you have just a couple minutes here for the David Tulis program on 92.7 FM, arguing that you should love your neighbor and buy local. Love your neighbor, buy local. Now, I have got some important messages, I should say.
The Tennessee Valley's news